A couple named Travis and Deborah take a break from exercising on the couch. Deborah gets up to fetch a glass of water, and while in the kitchen, she hears some shuffling noises from around the house. Deborah hears the water running in the bathroom, so she enters and takes her top off when she sees Travis just increasing the water bill. Deborah screams when she realizes Travis is dead, but her mouth gets covered and she's taken away. Ellie, a lawyer, is on the phone as she arrives at her new home and greets her husband, Marcus, a fine-ass man. At night, Ellie has a look of longing like she wants to get her brains drilled in, but Marcus is already asleep. The following day, Ellie meets up with her best friend Courtney at work, and she invites Ellie to the bar on Friday. Ellie is introduced to a tech consultant named David at work, and the two recognize each other from before. Ellie explains to her boss, Janice, that they went to college together, and it's been 20 years since they last saw each other. During the meeting, Ellie drops a paper, David picks it up, and Ellie touches his hand. After the meeting, David compliments her on how black women never age. He ain't wrong. Ellie declines his invite but gives him her business card. The next day, David returns with excellent work. He tells her they should celebrate, but Ellie has plans with Courtney. Ellie invites David, and he accepts after she insists. At the bar, Courtney tells Ellie that she won't make it because of work. David arrives to hear the news and jokes that he's got Ellie all to himself tonight. He grabs her waist and they sit down to have drinks. David mentions Janice's announcement that Ellie is leaving the firm. Ellie explains that she and her husband bought a new home outside the city and plans to start her own practice after finishing her current case. She also reveals that she has a daughter in college and felt it was a good time to move. Black don't crack. Ellie asks him about his life, but David just tells her he's divorced and has no kids. Ellie confesses that her marriage hasn't been feeling the same and gets a text from Marcus. Ellie lies about being with Courtney and continues her conversation with David. They move to a club, and Ellie asks why they've never dated. Marcus tells her that she was dating guys left and right and was afraid of getting rejected by her. He reveals that he knew Ellie was working at the firm and took the job because he wanted to catch up with her. He takes her hand and says if things went differently between them, she wouldn't be stuck in a marriage where she feels like her husband is a stranger. David leads her to the dance floor, and they start dancing intimately together. They're about to kiss, but Ellie pulls away and escapes to the bathroom. "Miss Ma'am, don't be a hoe. You have a hot hubby at home." She gets her thoughts together, and when she's ready to step out, David is outside the door ready to ravish her. He takes Ellie in his arms, leading them to make out. They rush to undress, but as David unbuckles, Ellie backs out and tells him she can't do it. Ellie walks out of the club, and David follows her. She says she should go home and shouldn't have said all that stuff about her husband. In the car, she can't help but think of the steamy time with David in the bathroom. "All the bathrooms I've been to smell like piss. I don't think that's steamy." David attends his counseling session and tells his therapist he's been doing great and seeing someone. He talks about the woman being a lawyer and recently getting out of a long-term relationship. The therapist brings up how broken David was about Deborah during their first sessions and asks if he still feels the same way. The couple's daughter, Brittany, arrives at the new home. She walks around in awe of the new place and is greeted by her parents. Back in the city, Ellie grabs coffee with Courtney while someone watches them from a vehicle. David greets her before Ellie can get in her car, apologizing for that night. David thinks she's angry at him since she hasn't returned his calls. David wants to talk with her and hear about her new firm, but Ellie isn't having it. She says that she can't and is married. The car behind them honks impatiently for parking. Ellie gets in her car and David tells her that things don't need to be awkward between them, then she leaves. Psycho stalker status. Ellie prepares food at home, but keeps getting texts from David, mentioning that he can't stop thinking of what happened at the club. She blocks him and accidentally cuts herself in distraction, and Marcus arrives to soothe her pain. They get intimate until late at night, but there's a stalker outside their home, and it's none other than David. He watches them from afar with malice and jealousy. Brittany gets picked up by her date at home. Her parents see her off, and they start preparing dinner. The doorbell rings, and Courtney enters with a surprise guest, David. This throws Ellie off, and David introduces himself as if they haven't met. Marcus gives the guests a tour while Ellie starts panicking and looks uncomfortable. Over the meal, Marcus asks how the new couple met. Courtney tells their story and mentions that David had recently gotten a divorce. Ellie asks about the divorce, and David repeats what she told him at the bar about how your partner feels like a stranger after 20 years. Ellie tears up, and David continues to talk about how he wasn't taken seriously despite all the effort he put into the relationship while looking into Ellie's eyes. Marcus initiates a toast to new friendships to ease the tension, and Ellie gets up to get dessert. She calls Courtney for assistance, wanting to talk to her privately, but David stops her and takes her place. Ellie calls him batshit crazy, but he feels that he has no choice because she isn't responding to him. He tries to convince her that they can try to make it work, but Ellie doesn't care and demands that he leave, not wanting to see him again. David steps out and explains why he must go, then leaves with Courtney. When Ellie returns from a jog, a package awaits her while someone's watching her from the bushes. Does David not have a day job? She opens the package to find a vinyl, then leaves a voicemail for Courtney. Ellie meets up with David at a restaurant. She tells him he's crossed the line, but David takes it wrong and thinks she wants to be discreet. He reassures her that no one has to know about them, but Ellie clarifies there's nothing between them. David reveals that he can potentially blackmail her by calling Marcus about them. Ellie tells him that her only mistake was getting caught up with him at the club and warns him to stay away, but he slams the table angrily and calls her Deborah. Ellie asks who Deborah is, but he doesn't reply. She warns him again and returns the vinyl before leaving, which he crushes. Ellie arrives at her firm to find Courtney pissed off at her. She explains everything David told her, a twisted version of what happened. David made it seem like Ellie was the one who initiated everything and wanted an affair with him. Ellie defends herself, saying Courtney's got it all wrong, but Courtney takes her phone out to reveal messages from Ellie about how she can't stop thinking about what happened, which are words from David. Ellie can't believe Courtney's choosing to believe David, whom she hasn't known for too long, rather than her best friend. A trifling hoe always chooses to believe crappy men. Courtney steps out in disbelief that Ellie doesn't want to admit the truth, and Ellie follows while trying to get her to listen. In the distance, David watches them from his car. When Courtney leaves, Ellie tries to get a background check on David. She visits an old college friend named Nicole and asks her about David back in college. Nicole tells her he was obsessed with Ellie, but Ellie doesn't recall since she only had eyes for Marcus at the time. Nicole brings up David's ex-wife, Deborah, and Ellie isn't sure if she's met her before. Nicole tells her that Deborah looked just like her, and they divorced because David had a bad temper and was controlling and jealous. Ellie wants to meet Deborah, but Nicole says she was murdered along with her boyfriend at their home. This makes Ellie feel highly unsettled. At night, David hacks into Ellie's home. He looks around and sniffs Ellie's lingerie. That must have smelled like something fierce. He sneaks up beside her sleeping figure and takes a strand of hair. Brittany arrives home and David finds her in the kitchen. While David hides, holding a knife, Brittany looks for the noise she hears. She's about to see David, but the microwave beeps, distracting her. David puts the knife down and leaves. Ellie is distracted during dinner with her family. She gets a message from an unknown number who found out that she's been asking around about him, which is David. David sends a video of them intimately dancing at the club. Then she drops her phone and rushes to pick it up before Brittany can. On the phone, David says that he hacked the club's security footage and won't be giving up on their relationship. Ellie tries to reach out to Courtney again but doesn't answer. She's unaware that David's hacked their CCTV and is watching her every move. Courtney receives an email from Ellie, but she just scoffs at it, and David arrives with a gift. It's Ellie's lingerie he stole, and she leaves to put it on while David gets on her laptop to delete Ellie's email. David ravages her as he imagines it's Ellie that he's being intimate with. This poor girl, Courtney. She can do so much better too. The following morning, Ellie secretly tails David and finds out that he's going golfing with Marcus. Marcus talks about his marriage and his accident, but tells David everything's been better lately with his wife. They pack up, and David hints that he wants to end Marcus to have Ellie all for himself. Ellie continues to stalk David and waits for him to leave his apartment. She lies at the reception and gains access to his place. Ellie looks around and finds David's secret tech room. She enters his laptop using her name as the password and sees pictures of Deborah and Travis being intimate. She can't bear to look anymore, but finds pictures of her and her family. Ellie hears the door unlock and rushes to hide. David feels like something's off and looks around, getting closer to Ellie. But Courtney calls, and he leaves to go to her. On the road, Courtney finally accepts Ellie's call. Ellie tells her about the pictures of her on his laptop and that David isn't who she thinks he is. David arrives at Courtney's, and she ends the call. He asks her who she was talking to since he heard her down the hall, but Courtney dismisses it as a work call. When he's away, Courtney takes his phone and finds private pictures of Ellie. David is behind her, which scares her, so she asks him about the photos. David excuses it as a task Janice instructed, and Courtney says she needs some air. David holds her back and cups her face, then knocks her out. "Girl, we tried to warn you." Ellie arrives at Courtney's, and she's unconscious. Police and ambulance arrive, and Ellie is told that David isn't at his apartment, but they'll find him. Marcus comforts Ellie, who tells him she'll reveal everything at home. Ellie becomes honest with Marcus, who's in shock at everything. She tells him she didn't know what to do or how to tell him. Marcus is disappointed, saying she can talk to many people as a lawyer, but can't open up with her husband. Ain't that the truth? Meanwhile, David is at a beach with a gas tank, a letter, and a lighter. The following day, his burnt remains are found on the sand. A detective breaks the news about David's passing and shows her his letter. David took responsibility for everything and confessed to ending his ex-wife and her boyfriend through the voicemail he left for his therapist. As the detective leaves, Ellie asks about Courtney, and the detective says she's recovering well. Ellie apologizes to Marcus. He admits he's angry and hurt, but regardless, he loves Ellie, and they hug it out. The family prepares for the holidays, but Ellie is asked to sign some papers at the office. When she arrives, the office is dark and quiet. She looks around for her coworker Linda, but trips and falls to see her dead on the ground. She screams and gets a call from Linda, but when she answers, it's David telling her that she left her family alone. Ellie rushes back home, calls the detective that David is still alive, and asks for reinforcements. When she arrives home, she finds Brittany's boyfriend dead in the backyard. David puts music on and dances, asking Ellie to dance with him. Ellie asks where Marcus and Brittany are, and David tells her that her husband barely put up a fight. David says they can start a new life together, and Ellie agrees, approaching him closely with a knife. She makes her move, but David blocks it and drops the knife. Ellie gets out of her grasp and knocks him out with a vase. She picks up the knife and looks for Marcus and Brittany, who are tied up in the bedroom. Ellie frees them as police sirens wail in the distance. They rush outside, but David is gone. When they get to the police car, the cop is dead, and Ellie tries to reach out for help through the radio. She plays around with the buttons, turning the lights off, but David appears when it's back on. He drags her back inside, and Marcus chases after them while Brittany drives off. The men fight each other while Ellie tries to retrieve the knife. Marcus gets thrown over the fence, and Ellie stabs David. The couple runs away from the house while David removes the knife and grabs the deceased cop's gun. He chases after them, but Marcus can't keep up with Ellie, so he falls to the ground. When Ellie turns around, she sees David with the gun. Ellie begs for him to stop while David insists they start over and he won't hurt her. Marcus gets up and tackles him. Then Ellie starts hitting him with a log. The men punch each other, and David is knocked down at the edge of the cliff. Ellie grabs him so he doesn't fall, but he lets go and drops as Ellie cries in Marcus's arms. 2 months later, Brittany drives back to college all single now, and the couple plans to return to the city and sell their home. What a roller coaster ride. What's the moral of the story? Remember to always look for red flags before getting into an affair, or to never sleep with a chubbier man than your husband.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.